The phone in Jerry Jones's office at the Star in Frisco, Texas, has been burning. Literally burning. And the reason it is burning is the same reason that Cowboys fans across the country are refreshing their phones every 30 minutes, scanning every NFL insider account they follow, praying for a single alert that says the words they have been desperately waiting to read. Dallas Cowboys trade for linebacker. Complete. Because right now, right at this exact moment, 3 weeks before the most important draft in Cowboys history, with a rebuilt offense that is elite and a defense that surrendered 30.1 points per game in 2025, the one gaping hole that remains, the one position that has undermined every defensive rebuild this franchise has attempted since 2020, the one group that cost this team playoff football while Dak Prescott was playing some of the best football of his career. That position is linebacker. And Jerry Jones has publicly confirmed that his team has tried to make trades and that those trades have not worked out. Yet. The word yet matters more than any other word in Dallas's offseason right now. Because the NFL draft is April 23rd, and every single insider, analyst, and source with knowledge of this franchise's front office activity is saying the same thing. The linebacker trade is not dead, it is loading. And what happens over the next 3 weeks at the draft table, on the trade market, and in Jerry Jones's phone calls could completely reshape the Dallas Cowboys' chances of finally getting back to January football in 2026. To understand why the linebacker situation in Dallas has reached the level of urgency that is generating this kind of frantic, desperate, publicly acknowledged trade pursuit, you have to understand the scale of what happened to this defense in 2025. Not just the statistics, though the statistics are genuinely horrifying, but the specific, documented, game-by-game catastrophe that unfolded at linebacker week after week while Dak Prescott was throwing for touchdowns and the offense was trying its absolute best to carry a team that had forgotten how to stop anyone from doing anything. While every position group on the 2025 Cowboys defense deserved criticism, none got it more than the linebackers. Blogging the boys. That is saying something remarkable because the entire defense was historic in its futility. But the linebackers were the worst of the worst, the position group that became the single most visible symbol of everything wrong with how the Cowboys were built defensively, the group that gave up yards and first downs and touchdowns with a consistency and a total lack of resistance that made it feel on some Sunday afternoons like they were not actually trying to prevent the offense from scoring. Kenneth Murray and Shamar James finished the 2025 season with sub-40.0 grades from Pro Football Focus, putting them right alongside the Cincinnati Bengals for the worst starting linebacker duo in the entire league, Pro Football Rumors. Sub-40. The average grade for an NFL starter is around 65. Murray and James were at sub-40. They were not just below average, they were historically, statistically, embarrassingly below average. And they were the starting linebackers for a team that allowed the most points in the National Football League. The atrocious Dallas defense gave up 511 points in 2025, the most in the entire league, and let opposing offenses record 340 or more yards of total offense in 11 of their 17 regular season games. Blogging the boys. 511 points. Across 17 games, that works out to 30.1 points per game surrendered, the worst figure in franchise history since the Cowboys began playing football in 1960. The linebackers were the center of that disaster. When opposing teams needed third and medium conversions, they targeted the linebacker level and got them almost automatically. When opposing teams wanted to run the ball, the Cowboys linebackers were getting washed out of their gaps and buried by blockers. When quarterbacks wanted to attack the intermediate crossing routes and seam routes that are the bread and butter of modern NFL offenses, they found the Cowboys linebacker depth chart and treated it like a free play. It was not competitive football at that level. It was a professional liability. Dallas let Kenneth Murray, Jack Sanborn, and Logan Wilson hit free agency this offseason, with Wilson electing to retire. Pro Football Rumors. 3 linebackers from the 2025 roster gone, which means the Cowboys enter 2026 with a linebacker room that consists of DeMarvion Overshawn, Shamar James, Justin Barron, and Marist Liufau, a collection of players that, when you honestly assess their NFL track records, does not inspire confidence that this unit is going to suddenly transform itself from the worst in the league to even a league average group without significant external help. The most important and most complicated member of that group is DeMarvion Overshawn, because Overshawn is the player who, when healthy, has shown flashes of genuine excellence. In 2024, Overshawn was arguably the Cowboys' second-best defender after Micah Parsons, aggressive against the run, picking up 5 sacks, making big plays with tremendous closing speed, blogging the boys. The tools are there, the instincts are there, the speed is there, but the knees keep betraying him. After missing his entire rookie year with a torn ACL, Overshawn suffered another major injury in 2024, tearing the ACL, MCL, then PCL in his right knee in Week 14, and then returned in 2025 to play only 7 games, still not fully the player he was before the devastation of that multi-ligament injury. ACL, MCL, PCL, 3 ligaments in the same knee, in the same year. That is not bad luck. That is a body that is genuinely struggling to handle the demands of playing linebacker in the NFL. And the Cowboys' entire defensive rebuild cannot be built on the hope that this specific body finally stays healthy for 17 games in one season. New defensive coordinator Christian Parker made one thing extraordinarily clear. He intends to build his scheme around Overshawn, utilizing him extensively in blitz packages and creating a defensive identity that maximizes his pass rushing ability from the linebacker position. Sport DFW. That is a genuine vote of confidence in Overshawn's talent from the man whose opinion matters most. Parker is not working around Overshawn, he is building around him. He saw what Overshawn showed in 2024, the sacks, the closing speed, the football intelligence, and he wants more of it in a more structured and intentional way. Pro Football Focus identified Overshawn as the Cowboys' top breakout candidate for 2026, noting that he has produced nearly 1,000 snaps of solid play across his first 2 active seasons, and that having the elite defensive tackle tandem of Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams in front of him should create far better opportunities for him to make plays without being buried by double teams and wash blocks, the Landry hat. But even with Parker's confidence, even with the improved defensive line in front of him, even with a full offseason of health for the first time in his NFL career, Overshawn cannot be the only linebacker on this roster who can start and perform at a high level. Christian Parker's system works when all 3 levels of the defense are functioning. The front makes life difficult for quarterbacks, the secondary takes away deep throws, and the linebackers control the intermediate zones, take away crossing routes, and fill gaps in the run game with violence and precision. You cannot run that system with one competent linebacker and a group of developmental players around him. You need a running mate. You need someone who can be the second voice of authority in the middle of that defense, the second player that opposing offenses have to respect when they're designing their game plan. And right now, the Cowboys do not have that player on their roster. One analysis suggested that if the Cowboys pursue the Brooks trade aggressively, the price could involve picks in the range of the 92nd overall selection, the 3rd-round pick Dallas received from San Francisco in the Osa Odigizua deal, along with additional compensation depending on Miami's asking price, Yardbarker. That is a reasonable price for an all-pro starter at a position of critical need. It is not giving away a first-round pick. It is not mortgaging the future to fix a present problem. It is deploying exactly the kind of targeted, specific, immediate impact trade that a team with a championship-caliber offense and a defensive hole at one specific position should be making. Cowboys fans are stunned by the speed and scope of all of this. The conversations happening right now, Queen, Brooks, the draft options, Jerry Jones publicly confirming failed trade attempts, are the conversations of an organization in genuine crisis at linebacker, scrambling to find a solution before the season begins, and the same problems that prevented this team from making the playoffs in 2025 manifest themselves all over again in 2026. The frustration in the fan base is real and raw. This team should have addressed linebacker in the offseason before 2025. They should have drafted one in 2024 when the opportunity existed. They should have retained a capable starter rather than letting the position deteriorate into a sub-40 PFF grade disaster. The failures at linebacker are not the product of bad luck. They are the product of years of organizational decisions that consistently undervalued the position until it was impossible to ignore anymore. Brian Schottenheimer said at the NFL League meetings, "We've been very active, but we're not done. We've got a good plan. We've got firepower going into the draft. We're not done." Dallas Cowboys. Not done. The linebacker deal is not done. The conversation with Miami about Brooks is not done. The potential draft day trade discussions with Pittsburgh about Queen are not done. The first-round draft evaluation of Sonny Styles and C.J. Allen and Anthony Hill Jr. is not done. The entire linebacker picture for the Dallas Cowboys in 2026 is one phone call, one conversation at a draft table, one willingness from a motivated seller to finally agree on a price from being completely resolved. And when it is resolved, when that alert finally hits, when the trade announcement comes, when Jerry Jones pulls off the linebacker acquisition that his defense so desperately needs and that his offense so clearly deserves, the Cowboys will enter the 2026 season with something they have not had since they drafted Micah Parsons in 2021, a defense with a genuine elite player at every level. Rashawn Gary and Donovan Ezeiaraku on the edge, Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams in the interior, an upgraded secondary with Jalen Thompson, Kobe Durant, and P.J. Locke, Deron Bland returning from foot surgery, and at linebacker, whether it is Jordan Brooks in a trade, Sonny Styles on draft night, or some combination of veteran and rookie that fills the void, a running mate for DeMarvion Overshown that makes the whole machine function the way Christian Parker knows it can. The trade is loading. The fan reaction is stunned, partly by how long it has taken, partly by the names being involved, and partly by the genuine possibility that this one acquisition could be the final piece of a defensive puzzle that has been missing since the day Micah Parsons walked out the door. Dallas Cowboys, linebacker, deal loading. The draft is April 23rd. The phone is still ringing, and Jerry Jones is not hanging up until the answer is yes.
Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer acknowledged the situation directly, saying Dallas made a run at several linebackers in free agency, specifically Devin Lloyd, Quay Walker, and Nakobe Dean, as well as attempting a trade for Patrick Queen. None of them came through. "We recognize that we need to fill some holes there," Schottenheimer said. The Patrick Queen pursuit is the one that generated the most heat and the most frustration. Cowboys insiders had reported the Cowboys showed interest in Queen early in the offseason, and one reporter even wrote on March 13th that a Queen trade seems imminent. Heavy sports. Imminent. And then it didn't happen. The Steelers' side of the story was consistently that Pittsburgh had no real interest in dealing the linebacker, with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulick writing, "I don't quite get the fans' discontent with Queen. It is not shared by the Steelers. Teams get offers all the time. Here's what I make of them. They're rumors." Heavy sports. ESPN's Adam Schefter confirmed the Steelers' stance, saying publicly that Pittsburgh was not interested in moving Queen. The Cowboys' pursuit was genuine, the Steelers' resistance was equally genuine, and the result was nothing, a frustrating dead end at a position of desperate need. Then came the Jordan Brooks revelation, and this one is genuinely explosive because it involves an all-pro linebacker, a rebuilding team that might actually be willing to sell, and a Cowboys organization that Jerry Jones has publicly confirmed is still aggressively shopping the trade market. Brooks led the entire NFL in total tackles last season with 183 and solo tackles with 99, while earning his first career All-Pro selection. He did so while starting all 17 games and adding 3.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 pass breakups. Sports Illustrated. Let those numbers sit for a moment. The league leader in total tackles, All-Pro, started every single game, 183 tackles, for a player who is only 28 years old and who was a first-round pick in 2020, a player who, by any reasonable measure, is in the prime years of his professional career and has shown zero signs of decline. That is the player the Cowboys want. That is the player whose name is now circulating as a legitimate trade target with real reporting behind it. The Miami Herald's Omar Kelly reported that the Dallas Cowboys are one of the teams that have called the Miami Dolphins about a potential Brooks trade. Yardbarker. Not a rumor, not speculation, a report from a credible beat writer with Dolphins sources confirming that the Cowboys have made an actual phone call to express actual interest in an actual all-pro linebacker. The Dolphins have fielded calls from interested teams, and while no serious deal has piqued Miami's interest quite yet, Dallas is identified as one of those teams actively pursuing the possibility. Yardbarker. The financial and contractual situation with Brooks creates the exact kind of opportunity that smart teams exploit in the NFL trade market. Brooks, 28, is entering the final year of his contract with Miami. The rebuilding Dolphins, who recently traded away Jalen Waddle in a blockbuster deal, could be looking to sell high on an asset whose value is at its peak right before he becomes a free agent. Pro Football Rumors. Miami is tearing things down. They are accumulating picks and future assets. And Jordan Brooks, the all-pro linebacker with 1 year left on his deal, represents exactly the kind of high-value, expiring contract player that a rebuilding team will trade for the right price. The Cowboys have the draft capital, they have the need, they have the organizational urgency, they have the owner who has publicly confirmed he is trying to make trades. The pieces fit together with a logic that is hard to argue against. Jerry Jones put it plainly and without any diplomatic softening when asked about the linebacker pursuit. We want to get better there with personnel. We've been trying very much to make some trades. They haven't worked out for us there, but that won't deter us from getting better there. Heavy Sports. We've been trying very much to make some trades. That is Jerry Jones publicly admitting that his front office has been on the phone trying to acquire a linebacker, that those phone calls have not produced deals yet, and that he has zero intention of stopping the pursuit. Coming from an owner who has historically been reluctant to acknowledge his team's weaknesses with that kind of directness, the admission is significant. It confirms what the reporting has been suggesting for weeks. This is not casual interest. This is an urgent, active, top priority pursuit that the Cowboys have been pushing hard and that could materialize at any moment, including during the draft itself. The draft option is real and is being analyzed by virtually every outlet covering this franchise. The Cowboys are expected to address linebacker with significant draft capital, potentially with one of their 2 first-round picks at 12 and 20 overall, because the position is simply too important to Christian Parker's new defensive scheme to leave to chance. Blogging the Boys. The top linebacker prospects in the 2026 class are elite by any recent historical standard. Ohio State's Sonny Styles is being discussed as a potential top 10 pick, the first linebacker to go that high since Isaiah Simmons in 2020. The linebacker class in 2026 is one of the strongest in years, with Sonny Styles, Anthony Hill Jr., C.J. Allen, Jake Goldeye, and Jacob Rodriguez all projecting as either first or second round selections. NFL. The Cowboys could address this position on day 1 of the draft and walk away with a legitimately elite linebacker who has the profile to start immediately.
But the trade route, the veteran route, the now route is where the real drama is loading, because the draft gives you a rookie who needs 12 months to learn a professional system before he can reliably contribute. A veteran trade gives you someone who can walk in on day one, understand the concepts, and play at a high level immediately. For a team with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens on offense, a team whose window is 2026, not 2028, the argument for the veteran trade is powerful. You do not waste Dak Prescott playing a rookie linebacker through growing pains. You trade for Jordan Brooks. You give Christian Parker the all-pro linebacker he needs to install his system properly, and you go into the 2026 season with a defense that has an actual chance of being competitive rather than historically terrible.